Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Vinny Lion. If you're a returning subscriber, I want to thank you. And if you're a new subscriber, thanks for being there too. Please do not hesitate to hit the like button when you watch the video. And also please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that whenever I release new videos, you will be notified. So today we're going to be tackling another topic. And the topic is why Japanese cars are so popular in the US. Why are they so popular? I'm sure when I talk of Japanese cars, a lot of you know what I'm talking about, right? But anyway, let me go ahead and name some of the Japanese car brands that are very popular in Northern America and in particular the US. Now, I'm sure almost everybody knows a Toyota car, right? A Honda, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, all those are Japanese brands. And most of them are very popular in the US. But you know, this popularity, it did not come easy. It wasn't something that happened overnight. They didn't just wake up and then one day, boom, they are popular in the US. You know, there's a little bit of history behind that. So actually the first Japanese car maker that got to the US was Toyota, and that was in 1958 with their Toyota Pet Crown vehicle. And soon after, other Japanese car makers followed suit. Actually, when they got to the US, it wasn't all rosy for them, as I already said, right? Firstly, Americans thought Japanese cars were knockoffs of Western technology. You know, Japan is in Asia. And mind you, the Americans beat the Japanese in the Second World War, which ended somewhere around 1944. So that was just a decade plus that you had Japanese start exporting cars to the United States. So there was this very real anti-Asian sentiment. And the Japanese cars, they were doing very well in Japan and in some other Asian markets, right? So they took the same cars that they were selling in Japan and they just carried them to the US to try to sell the same cars there. And Japanese cars compared to American cars, even to this day, are much smaller in size, right? Not much smaller, but I mean, yeah, but back then they were much smaller compared to the American vehicles. And they had it rough early on because a lot of Americans just considered them to be, you know, like boxes that could break at any time. They were not considered to be reliable vehicles. Also, they were not viewed as having sophisticated technology because the cars used to break down a lot. First of all, you know, in the early stages, the Japanese were exporting just a few hundred cars to the US market a year. And later on, it became a few thousand. And by 1968, the total amount of vehicles that the Japanese exported to the United States was just about 200,000 vehicles. So actually, as they started better understanding the American market, you know, improving their technology and trying to satisfy the taste of the American consumer, their fortunes began to change. But there are several events that marked a big turning point for the Japanese in the US market. So firstly, in the early 1960s, there were a lot of environmental, industrial disasters and also health related illnesses caused or linked to pollution. You even had the New York smog crisis in 1966, where smoke covered the whole New York City for a long time. And so all of this began to change the perception about, you know, how people could just burn fuels unlimitedly. And so the EPA was created, and their job was to regulate, you know, to protect that. The EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, to help to protect the environment and so they were to set emission standards, set, certain standards that companies, whether automotive or, otherwise, had to meet in when burning these fossil fuels, in order to reduce the amount of toxins that they were releasing that was affecting people. And something very interesting happened. The American companies, that's talking about Chevrolet, General Motors, and others, they lobbied to push back the deadline that was given to them by the EPA to meet these standards, because they complained that the timeline was impossible for them to meet, and that was going to affect their bottom lines. And the EPA listened to them. Whereas on the other side, the Japanese knew that to keep exporting cars to the US, they needed to meet the US emission standards. So the Japanese government also enacted the same standards as the US to apply to its own automotive industry. But initially, the Japanese car makers were also resistant to this change, as they were, the same complaints, and gave the same complaints like the Americans. But there was a lot of pressure that was put on by Japanese mayors and protesters, because they had also faced their own industrial accidents and diseases linked to these same pollutants that the US was trying to regulate. And so due to this pressure, the Japanese caved in and decided to respect the EPA's emission standards and meet the deadline that was set by the EPA to improve the amount of toxins, or the amount of pollutants that their cars were emitting into the atmosphere. So they had to refine and rework their technologies in order to make all of these improvements. This led them to make more efficient engines and more reliable cars. And they were able to meet the deadline that the EPA had set. Meanwhile, the American counterparts had asked for the deadline to be pushed. So this gave them now an edge in more efficient technology. And they were able to start exporting more and more cars to the US. And by the 1970s, there was also a crisis, an oil crisis. Because one reason why Americans have cars with big engines is because the cost of fuel was very, very cheap back then. And so it didn't mean anything driving a car with a huge engine that was polluting the atmosphere. I mean, gas was cheap to come by. But in the 1970s, there was a gas crisis too. That was the second major event. And this worked in the favor of the Japanese, who had already made very efficient engines. It made they had reduced the sizes of their engines, and the engines were performing very well. And also they had improved the overall quality of their vehicles and made them more reliable. So this made a lot of consumers to go for Japanese cars, as the fuel increase was biting. And as many more people bought these cars, they realized that the Japanese cars were very, very good, well-built cars, which did not consume a lot, meaning that the cars were efficient, they were affordable, and they were reliable. And so by 1980, the Japanese were exporting over 2 million vehicles to the American market. This compared to 1968, where when they were exporting just about 200,000. So this is like a 900% increase in just over 12 years. That's crazy. No? So the oil crisis and the emission standards, it worked in their favor. And a lot of consumers, as they were becoming cost conscious, they wanted to buy something that they could use for long, that does not, guzzle a lot of gas, made it. And also a lot of people were becoming, environmentally conscious. So if you're using a car that, has met all the standards set by the agency, that's something that attracted a lot of US consumers, and more began to purchase Japanese cars. And that's how the Japanese became more and more popular. They kept on refining their technology. And one other thing that gave Japanese has made them to be so popular up to this day, because being popular then is one thing, maintaining that popularity up to this, this is 2023 and they are still very popular. There's one reason for that. They have been very consistent. It means their quality standards, the standards that they put in place for their vehicles to meet. When you talk about Toyota, you talk about Honda, these are really well built cars with high quality, with high safety standards. So it has made them to be able to maintain that popularity over time. And inflation over the years, and economic crisis, which caused people to have less and less money to spend on things like gas, have made them even a more popular option. And another important thing about these Japanese cars, especially, let's talk about Toyota and Honda, which are the two most popular. And in the luxury segment, you have Lexus right there. For Toyota, the value that these cars retain compared to the US cars is unbelievable. They don't lose their value as much as US cars or some European cars like BMW, Mercedes, and the like. They hold their value, which means you can buy a brand new Toyota car and after 3 years it has lost just 15% of its value, compared to other brands that might lose as much as 40-50%, within a few years of you taking the car. And that is a testament to their reliability and their fuel efficiency, and the fact that these cars last a very long time. You can drive a Toyota vehicle so long as you maintain it for as long. Of course, everybody, you will say, any vehicle can run for as long if it is well maintained. That's true. But Toyotas and Hondas, they are in another class in terms of when it comes to car reliability. When they are well maintained, these cars run well above even 1 million miles if you take good care of them, compared to other vehicles that break down, within 100,000 miles. And when you talk about car safety, even to this day, the top most reliable or safest vehicles, according to tests, tend to be Japanese vehicles, followed by Korean cars. So even in that area, they are still leading because they have been refining their technology and they are constantly looking for ways to improve and provide better, cars to their customers. So, if we were to summarize the main reasons why the Japanese are very popular in the US, I will summarize them as such. Number one, they are affordable. It's true that, with all what has happened with the COVID, it has affected car prices, but compared to other vehicles, in their categories and based on the value that they give the end customer, they are still very competitive price-wise. Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, all of that. So number one, they are affordable. Number two, they are reliable. They are reliable means that you can rely on your car. You're driving your car, you know that it's not going to break down, at any time, especially when you take care of the cars. Number three, they are fuel efficient. So this is still linked to affordability. I was talking about affordability in terms of price, but I think affordability, it includes price, it includes the cost of maintaining the vehicle. You don't have to spend a lot, to maintain a Toyota car or a Honda car, as you have to do with other cars. And in terms of fuel, the engine, they have multiple different types of engines, even have like fuel injection engines that are very efficient. Sure. The third is the resale value. So this is synonymous with this is when you talk of Honda and Toyota, These are cars that hold their value for a very long time. They don't lose their value easily. So you can buy it brand new. After 3-4 years, you can still sell it for a substantial amount, right? Because the demand for these cars is quite high. So it makes them, hold their value for quite a long time. And the last, but not the least, is safety. These cars have been proven to be, with the tests, that are run on cars for safety, to be some of the safest cars. The Japanese cars always come out on top in terms of safety compared to other brands, especially the American brands. So this makes them very, very popular with consumers. So that is it. That is all that I had for this segment. Now, if you love this content, please do not hesitate to hit that subscribe button, also hit the like button, and also share. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll be bringing you more content as the weeks come. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.